Hello and welcome to this month's release of What's New in Intune. And this month we are a little bit behind. There has been some events, the MVP Summit and also the Midwest Management Summit that both me and Matthias have attended. So sorry for being a little bit late with this video, but hopefully we should bring you up on speed on what has changed in the latest release of Intune. Hi, Matthias.
Hi, Nikolai, and good to see you again. Was a blast to see you in person in the US.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first time we actually met in person. That's kind of weird.
I think we met sometime at Ignite in 2018, but you, of course, do not remember that because I was not part of the group at that time.
Yeah, I'm really bad with names and remembering who I have met over the years.
Yeah, I can
forget.
I can definitely relate to that, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was a great experience to be at MMS. So, if you ever wonder which conference you should go to, high recommendations from us to the MMS. It was really, really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the endpoint management focused conference, the best in the world, to be honest. The atmosphere is great. The attendance, the attendees are just, they're there to learn. They engage. As a speaker, you have lots of opportunity to answer questions and help out as much as possible. And that's the whole atmosphere that really makes the conference great. So I definitely agree. If you haven't attended, make sure that you look it up and attend. Cool. But we're here to talk about the Intune Service Release 2304 that came out a few weeks ago now. Some of you have probably noticed some of the new additional stuff that has come out, but we will kick it off with one of the first GA announcements, ServiceNow integration. It's now GA.
It's GA, and what can we tell about that, Nikolai? Maybe you could put my stream on, and I'll show you a little bit. So, in the last session of our 2303, we told you about how to configure the ServiceNow and how it actually looks. So, going to show you a lot of things. We are not in this because you can just simply go to this link. You can look it up in our series and then click on exactly where you want to go, and then you get all the information that you need to actually get on with this feature. So it's simply going from a preview to a GA, right, Nikolai?
Yeah, exactly. I think, do you have Zoom running? We had that issue with the mouse cursor in the last video.
It shouldn't be running, but I can check. Nope, no Zoom.
It's so weird because I see many cursors. Anyways, we will edit it out. We will blur all the additional cursors. I wonder why they're there, actually. It's rather funny, but anyways. So yeah, ServiceNow is there. Go check out our previous video if you want to know more about it. But we have another announcement as well, which is the endpoint privilege management feature is now GA as well. I think that's pretty exciting. And check it out if you haven't. I don't recall, did we go through it in our previous videos?
I think we actually did. Also in the 2303. So if you click the 4255 stamp, then you will be redirected directly to this point of view of the video. So go check it out.
Is that one of the fastest, changes from public preview to GA that Intune has ever had? Maybe.
It's one of the fastest, at least. But I also think that Microsoft is heavily investing in this area because it's part of the new Intune Suite license, and Microsoft really wants us to get all the benefits of buying the whole suite. So yeah, they really have a lot of focus on getting these services out as fast as possible.
Yeah, makes total sense. Hopefully, they will also continue with this fast cadence and process of releasing new features for the EPM functionality or feature itself, so that it gets improved and fills the sort of gaps that it currently has in terms of looking at other competitors or other products on the market.
Exactly. And just want to shout out or call out, Sandy did a first look at the endpoint privilege management. So actually the day that went in the public preview, this post was also put on the MS Endpoint Manager site. So if you want to learn more about the EPM, you can definitely go through Sandy's blog here. And yeah, it's really good and gets you started.
Definitely go look up Sandy's blog. It's really well written. Cool. And for the next general availability announcements, it's the Windows Update compatibility reports for apps and drivers. Ooh, that was long.
Yeah. And thing is, Nikolai, we had this desktop analytics for quite some time that was attached to Config Manager, and what it was good at was to say, let's see how many different devices and groups you need in order to cover, for example, 99% of all your hardware asset management, or maybe your application stack. And then you could use that information to make sure you patch those devices or users first, and try to target as many configurations as you have in your company to make sure that the patch is not ruining anything, right? So we're looking for kind of a replacement for that because it's not existing anymore. It's not quite the same, but we get some of the same possibilities. We can now go and select a target OS, and if we can take a scope tag if you have a lot of those. Normally you would have the default that's built in, but nevertheless we will get a score of the devices, and it will tell us exactly a pretty good predictability around if we upgrade to Windows 11 22H2, for example. Have you used this internally?
We have used it a little bit. We've looked at it. It's been a couple of months ago since I looked at it, though, so I'm just waiting for this to load to see if there's anything that has changed, but it still seems to just list all devices by name and then provide you with numbers of sort of issues, right?
Exactly.
And if I recall, if you were to click on any of those devices, you would get a bit more details in terms of the actual either safeguard hold or preventing applications that prevents the update or provides some sort of risk status.
Yeah. So
this is the sort of, I think it's really good that we have this data and it's presented really well. I'm just lacking this sort of, okay, what's the next step? How do I actually act upon this information, right? I would essentially like what Desktop Analytics more or less had, which were to be, okay, I can categorize this particular application and say, I don't care if it's going to block my devices from a Windows 11 upgrade, for instance. Have that capability of granularly, that's a hard word, say that, you know what, uninstall this application, I don't care. Or either, like a more broader configuration perspective where I could say any application that would prevent an Windows 11 upgrade, simply just uninstall it or just keep it on, move it over, leave it be, basically. I don't care that it's not going to function on Windows 11. That's a control that I would rather have, because I would rather have a success in the upgrade rather than putting a lot of resources and time and effort into all of this sort of fixing and knitting and trying to basically attend all these risks. So I would have that. I would like to have that control, I think. It makes a little bit more sense depending, obviously, on your strategy of how you want to deal with these risks or potential risks, if you call it like that.
And another thing that could be quite cool, right, was if you kind of had a a click like I want this device, this device, this device, and this device to be offered a Windows 11. Because we already leverage the feature update, right, within Intune, and that goes to the WoofB deployment service API, and then it creates a sort of a rule and saying you can apply this version of Windows when the Windows device then goes to the Windows update and ask for updates. It could be quite nice to just tick the device and say, yeah, I want to upgrade this based on this report.
Yeah, I mean that totally makes sense in let's call it like smaller environments, but for very large environments, I think you need to have this sort of per application or per driver or per item configuration capability to override and make the offer of Windows 11, for instance, available anyway, and you have assessed that risk, you have taken an action upon that risk, and you are in control. So hopefully, if Microsoft are listening to this, I've already provided that feedback through other channels, but maybe they watch this video too, who knows?
We'll ship it to them, Nikolai. We'll make them.
We'll code it for them, for sure. If, else, something, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, are we done with this, I think?
I think, yeah, it makes so much sense to what you just said. So let's continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next on our topic for this video is that we can now assign permissions in RBAC models for organizational messages. Or we can have the assign permission now as well. Previously, we didn't have that available.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, when you add new stuff to Intune, you have this thing called role-based access controls, and people, I hope companies are using this out there, and they should actually, because Intune just becomes more and more powerful, right? But first thing, go to tenant administration roles, and here you're presented with all the standard built-in roles. You could have custom roles as well. And we have this organizational messages manager. That's one of the roles. And then we have example, some of the companies I'm doing stuff with have custom Intune roles. And this new RBAC needs to be implemented to those if you want to utilize that. And if we edit that and go down to the organizational messages here, you're now able to create a read, create, and an update organizational messages control, and delete, update, and assign. So this is no different from what you see in all the other tabs. This is just another tab pick, another feature you can manage, and I really think that is cool. So the custom help desk, I actually have a user in that RBAC rule. So I recently changed it to that my user should be able to read the organizational messages. And so the user here is my demo user, and I think it was 1 hour ago I did it. And if we go to the tenant administration and the roles, we can quickly click on my permissions to actually view whatever my user has permission to. And as you can see, it's not as separated or segregated as it was when I went to the administration part of it. But at least you get what kind of areas you are able to view or manage. Yep. So let's go to the organizational messages. And insufficient or lack of permission is causing access. So you can see that my read permission hasn't applied yet. And this is something I discover from time to time, that when I change in my custom RBAC rules, it's not so quickly adjusted to the people inside the RBAC role. So be aware of that.
Yeah, we have noticed the same when we have, pre-created a setup and defined the set of custom roles, and then we have discover that we needed to make adjustments to them, and then you sit there with your testing user or your colleague or something that has that role, and it has taken a good few hours before that actually gets applied or updated from the permissions perspective. So definitely good tip. Be aware of that.
Yeah. So make sure when you know your RBAC roles that how it should be assigned, how it looks like for the end user, because you have no fast way to see that the thing you have configured is actually applying on the end user. So yes, that could be better.
Everything could be better. For sure. But we can also do some additional stuff with these organizational messages now, right? We can delete them, which seems kind of
absolutely.
Good. I mean, you want to clean up your environment, right? I mean, I think we've talked about that for various scenarios, that you should always have a clean environment and remove stuff that is now obsolete or it's not useful anymore.
Yeah, you could say this is already completed, and now we have this delete command, and we can clean up our environment. I like
so
it.
we have talked about organizational messages before. What have you played around with it a bit more since? I mean, is there any improvements in terms of, is it being shown? Is it faster or anything like that? Or is it still the same?
No, I have not been playing around with it. So I have had no use for our use case for using the organizational messages yet. I'm still looking for it, but basically no, I haven't. And but I know I've read blogs about people using it, and it seems like it works very good for them. So
that is cool. At least we can remove them now. That's a good improvement. And it still has the preview tag, right? So maybe it gets improved. We just need to remember to voice the feedback, and they can hopefully go and improve it.
Yeah.
And additionally, related to organizational messages, we can now review the audit logs for such, right?
Exactly. And when things are not in the audit logs, we have no possibility to actually check who did what. So this is also a very welcomed change into our environment, making sure we can go to the audit and that we can see that there was an update device configuration on the organizational message detail. I would, however, say it should have said deleted. Maybe that is for another day.
Cool. Could you just browse to our webpage and then in search, put in the Intune audit workbook, I think we'd call it. I just want to call this out. The audit dashboard, because this really, really simplifies any type of management or workflows or discovery, essentially, of what's going on from an auditing perspective within Intune. So I mean, we have from various customers, myself together with Maurice and Sandy and others, Jan, I think, really gone through and put a lot of effort into visualizing what is happening in your environment, right? I mean, and we have made some additional improvements that's currently being tested in the environment where I work, specifically focused around Autopilot, so that you get way more details there. That will be updated shortly. But have a look at this if you are screaming and pulling the last hair of your head or something like that over how extremely hard and frustrating it can be to actually work with these auditing messages in Intune. There's room for improvement for sure. So, and that's the intention of this dashboard or workbook for Log Analytics. So check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice dashboard.
Exactly. So it says that we have additional permissions to support administrators in controlling delivery of organizational messages.
Yeah, and again,
I haven't looked at that.
No, it's a thing that relates to the RBAC role. So when you looked at the organizational messages down here, we have this update organizational messages control. So this is basically what you are able to control on this news.
Gotcha. Wonder what it does. Update organizational message control.
What I haven't been able to actually look up what it actually does, but what I believe it does is that I can make behavior here, so I can cancel or not delete, but maybe cancel it. Otherwise, I can't see what the this policy or change should do, really, because you can't update a organizational message once it's created, right? You have no possibility to do that. Once it's created, it's there, it sits there. You cannot change it. You have to create a new one.
So in the docs, it says, with additional permissions, administrators can control delivery of content created and deployed from organizational messages, as well as the delivery of content from Microsoft to users. Yeah, you may not want Microsoft to send organizational messages, perhaps. I don't know, maybe you want. I would probably definitely have to look into this a little bit more if we, obviously we are still in Windows 10, so we are not making use of this feature yet, but obviously when we go to Windows 11, I think this is extremely powerful. So make sure you dig into that one. I would not like, hey, there's a new version of Paint or a message being sent out.
I think that's important news.
That was a joke, by the way. I don't know what it does. Interesting. Cool stuff. Next up, we have a few updates around Matthias' favorite subject, endpoint security.
Yay!
And application control and whatnot. And the first one is that we can now have application ID tagging in the firewall rules policy. Please show us.
Yeah, and what the beep is this? Because VDAC,
it's the biggest, coolest update ever, right?
It is Windows Defender application control. Something that every organization will have implemented in their structure of working, right? Restricting apps, restricting PowerShell scripts, restricting all kind of stuff within your organization. No, I'm just kidding. Most doesn't have this configured because it has some difficult operational side of things, but actually on the channel, our YouTube channel, Kim Opvalens, he have 3 videos, 4.5 hours of content where we walk through Windows Defender application control. So if you like to know more about it, go to those videos, and he's really great at explaining. But for the firewall stuff and for the VDAC application ID tagging, we could go to the firewall and create a new firewall setting or from here. Let's see what kind of rule we need. It's a Microsoft Defender firewall rule. And let's see what we are able to do. We click the edit rule. We enable our firewall. We give it a name. We select the interface type. We also select the network type of things, and this is all profile we're going to choose. And then when we come down to the policy app ID down here, we will have a possibility to add the application ID tagging that we added to our VDAC rules. So instead of building these long paths to, for example, different kind of files or folder, no, not folders, but files, we can just tag this app ID and our firewall rules will dynamically apply to this. So this is a good way of configuring your firewall openings in order if your VDAC controlled application needs that.
That is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's some additional firewall rules support, right?
Yeah. So ICMP, that was something we used a lot on-prem, right? So just for an example, if we go to good old group policy management, we could create this new role or this new rule, and we choose all programs, and here we could choose, for example, ICMP version 4. And what you also need to look at is the protocol number here, because we're going to need that when we create the policy within Intune. The other thing you could configure was the for the v6, IPv6, and now you see the protocol number, it changes to 58. So this is a way of how you could enable this on your on-prem environment. And ICMP v4, done, right? Now we have enabled it for our on-prem systems and hybrid devices that talks or exchange information with our domain controller. So
it's so important so that we can ping our clients, right?
Exactly. So it is for troubleshooting on network connections, but it also is a thing that many security IT folks would disable, because it brings DOS attacks, etc.
Exactly.
So you really need to consider this. But in the firewall rules down here in the ICMP types and codes, this is where you can specify this. And there are some rules here. You can specify what type of ICMP and what type of code. So what I would do was I would type star down here, so it would take everything, and then I would choose the protocol that that I showed you before. It has to either be 1 or 58. So when you configure those two together, you have finalized, and you are able to ping your device. I don't think over internet, but when you're on a Ethernet connection with the device, you would be able to do that.
Sweet. Ping away, so to speak.
Ping away.
And additionally, from the security perspective, we can now what is it? Wow, it's long to read.
Browser isolation.
It's something about ASR, right?
Yes, and it was typically something you configured to Edge, right? App and browser isolation. So it's when you go to sites that you don't think is trusted, it could like isolate it so you don't get malware attacks from such if you click on stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of requirements for the device, hardware requirements, but the thing we will look at here is some new capabilities. If we go to the attack surface reduction, you can see we have a lot of device types or policy types here. So Microsoft, since April 2022, are committed to make a better experience when you go to the endpoint security and you create policies. So this is just part of that commitment from Microsoft to say we need to do something about the app and browser isolation. So if we look into the old version of that policy, and I tend to create a policy from time to time to make it sit in there, because when Microsoft then creates a new way of creating the policy, etc., I will still have the old one, so I can show people how it looked like and what the change is. So this is why I'm going into the old one, and you can see I can set all sorts of things for Edge. But Edge shifted focus, right? So we had the Chromium-based Edge and not the legacy one that we know. So Microsoft removed stuff from this policy, and they also made it available to manage how the clipboard is actually working. So we can look into that if we go into endpoint security and we create a whole new policy. And that's what you need to do if you want to have this new possibility.
Yeah, I was just going to say that because when I looked into this before, I mean, this really sounds like application guard in the background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's so many marketing names for all these various things.
Yeah, exactly. And what you can see from here is that it looks quite different, right? And we have this clipboard content option to allow text copying, and then the clipboard behavior settings. You can tell if you want it to go one way, both way, or from the application guard and to your host. So this is basically just more security functionalities that has been put in, and a cleanup of some deprecated stuff that makes no sense to add to your devices. So I really like this strategy from Microsoft, because when we worked with GPOs and stuff, this was kind of a setting that would just be there, and then later on, when we need to upgrade to Windows 11, maybe you would go clean up GPOs stuff. Now we have Intune, we are forced to take a decision because it's no longer there.
Yep.
And we clean up, so we don't have all this legacy lying around, and that's a really, really, really great initiative.
Cool. Yeah, I wish we had this at some point. Sometimes maybe we can in the future. But since you're the security experts on Defender, we could turn this on without. I mean, what's the requirements of this, right? I mean, do we need like P1 licenses or?
No, this is a Windows feature completely.
It is, right? Because it's essentially only the application guard control that you enable. Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, we should definitely look into this. I can definitely see a few scenarios with like browser extensions in a certain host or similar, where you could simply just here's all these nasty extensions that the business needs somehow to have access to, that we maybe not want to allow to be installed on any device, but it's needed for certain use cases. Maybe that's the use that we could do with the application guard, for instance, to set that up in a specific sense.
Yeah.
Sweet. So from moving on a little bit from security, but not that much, the next topic that is Windows Labs. Finally, it's in public preview, and it has been kind of rolled out with the April update, causing a little bit of, potential configuration issues, depending on if you were using Config Manager still and with task sequences and installing the old Labs client after the fact that you have installed the, April patch for Windows. But I mean, I think all of that has been rectified at this point, right? I mean, if you were to look at this from now and forward, there should not be any problem anymore.
No.
So that is good. But in general, Windows Labs, cool. Why do we have it, and why do we need it, right?
Yeah. Why do we have Labs, and why did Nikolai and the MS Endpoint Manager create a Cloud Labs solution for quite some years ago now? The reason for that is simply we need it. We need a kind of way, an easy way to get our support to be able to help out users with local administrative permissions without giving them local administrative permissions on their user. I see companies using a variety of accounts, right? They have an admin account, they have a sub, a third account maybe with some additional permissions. And the thing is, when you use those on Intune managed devices, you will have a lot of duplicates of profiles and stuff, because it will try to apply it to every user or that resides on the device. That's a design for the Intune managed device. So in order to not have this, the lab solution will not interfere and make this, for example, configuration profile duplicate stuff. And I really like it. So labs, welcome. And by the way, this is not a additional license. This is within the cost you already pay.
Exactly. And I mean, I just want to say, I mean, labs, the overall purpose of it is to obviously reduce the amounts of different administrative accounts with administrative access to all your devices or a subset of devices, making it through a single account itself so that you reduce the footprint, you lower your security posture, and you overall improve everything from a security perspective related to these local accounts. So it's definitely worth looking into. And now with this Windows Labs release, so to speak, we can now support Azure AD joined devices, but also hybrid Azure AD joined devices.
Absolutely.
And the missing piece before was specifically Azure AD joined devices, for instance, managed through Intune. That was a unsupported scenario, but now it's supported, which is great. So where do you start?
Yeah, you start with Azure AD because you need to make it aware and able to store this Labs key for you. So normally this is set to no, you enable it, you click save, and then you are good to go on the Azure AD part. After that, this is also endpoint security. You could go to the account protection, and inside here, you have a Windows 10 and later, and then you have the local admin password solution, Windows Labs. And if you create that, you would have it looking like this. So you can decide where you want this password to be backed up to. So here you have Azure Active Directory only. You have Azure AD only, or sorry, Active Directory only, and Azure AD only.
Confusing.
Yeah, it's so nice that they are so related. So it gets confusing from time to time. Yeah, so that's basically the drop down here. You can change the password age of days, minimum of 7. I can't put 3 in here. 7 to 365, and yeah, default is 30, I guess. 7 is the way I put it in here in my test environment, at least. Administrative account name, you can create your own. So it does not use, I believe, the built-in administrative account. Or does it really create another? That's a thing I haven't looked into, but it would be nice to have your own name at least for the admin account. So it's more easy to tell your IT support staff which user you can use and what's the name of that. The other thing is the password.
The best way, essentially, I mean, how I'm looking at this is that if you need to have another name, you could apply a policy to simply just rename the built-in one, and then apply that naming in here. I haven't tested it out though, but I mean, obviously this functionality would be documented to say what it actually does and how it works.
So basically, this is the one you would...
Right? There's those people who believe that, oh, it's way more secure to create your custom account, which, I mean, yeah, I could understand that. But I mean, the other built-in account is a known SID, but still, I mean, since we have Labs, we are rotating the password, we are changing it. And one of the really good features with Windows Labs is that you can configure these post-authentication actions, right? So, I mean, you can define what is going to happen once you have, for instance, made use of this password once. And as you can see here, Matthias has set it to reset the password and log off the managed account upon expiry of the grace period. Then, yeah, something else, right? So there's really good control of what happens when the password is being used in combination with the sort of reset delay, right? So you can set it to reset 4 hours later or 2 hours later after the password was essentially used for a given device, and then it will just reset again. So that's a way to combat this sort of limitation in terms of the password age days. Instead of simply just having a fixed set of days on when you reset it, you have these additional new features that you didn't have in the previous version of Labs. So this is some extremely cool and very welcomed features that they have added to this. So Absolutely. That's awesome, I think.
Yeah. And to the password length, well, if you use 64, you should make sure that you are able to copy that and use it on the particular device you're going to use it. If you're going to sit and type it, no way.
I would like to see you do that and succeed on the first try.
Yeah. So default is 14 characters, minimum is 8, and maximum is 64 characters.
Especially with your complexity policy that you have set up.
Yeah, you think that's complex. So large letters, just 64 of those. Thank you. Yeah.
Good work.
This is super nice, and you saw it was actually green. It's applied to my device. Yeah, this is.
Where do you get the password then?
Where do I get the password? Yes, that's a good question. I could either get that from the Azure AD portal. I could go to the local administrative password recovery, and I could then type my device or my device ID. If I don't have that possibilities, I could go to devices and Windows, and then I could go to my device, and here we have a local admin password. And here it would be to just copy that and use it.
Cool. Can I just say, I mean, if you were to go from the Intune portal, right? Currently, this is some feedback that I provided them, you have no RBAC control in terms of permissions to say who can see these passwords. So by default, it's only the Intune administrator and someone else that I have forgotten, I think, who will be able to see this from within the Intune portal, right? However, from the Azure AD portal sides of things, we have the custom roles or the built-in roles within Azure AD, where you have way more control of this. So depending on how you want to make use of it, in my opinion, I think it makes more sense to have this only accessible from within the Intune portal with the RBAC model introduced, so that you can define it and limit it to only a set of roles that you want to provide it access to this password, and then simply just remove any trace of it from within the Azure AD portal. I think that makes sense. Obviously, Microsoft went the other way around because this was developed by the Azure AD team. This has then been integrated into Intune. Hopefully, we can have such control in the future, but at least be aware of these sort of access ways of getting to this password with the current public preview, I should say.
Yeah,
and what's available.
And another thing, Nikolai, I forgot to mention that on our firewall CSP. So every time we have a UI, behind that there's a CSP. There's a configuration that it gets pushed down to the client, right?
Yep.
And on the Labs CSP, there is requirements, and you need to be aware of these requirements. Otherwise, you will have a CSP, a configuration that will fail on your devices.
Yeah.
So this is really important when you look into these different new stuff that we are showing. And as Nikolai mentioned, you needed the April patch on your device. And what you have to look at is the last 4 digits in terms of what you need to have installed on the client. That's one thing for Labs, but as well for the firewall, I showed you that's only for Windows 11 devices, and also the other VDAC store or policy app tagging. You need to be on a newer version of Windows. Otherwise, you will have a fine, nice error, maybe error 65,000. And yeah.
We don't like those.
We don't like it, but sometimes it happens.
They are evil, right?
Yep.
Cool stuff. Nice. I think it's time to leave Labs, but please check it out. It's a really good new feature that has been introduced. And in terms of new, we have a new partner portal page, right?
Yes, we do, Nikolai. And actually, in the current state of my Intune environment, I have no way to get into that partner portal, because there's one thing I need to do to get there. I need to go to devices, and then I need to click this preview upcoming change to devices and provide feedback. If I don't do that, it's not visible. You see, I have no partner portal anywhere. It's not here. So when I click this and I click try it out, then what I get down here is the partner portal. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Cool. And can I just need to, since you activated this, at MMS, the Microsoft team there actually made a small hack, or whatever you want to call it, where they added icons to this new view, and I went crazy. I think it was really cool, and all of the audience, just clapped and stood up and cheered, really, because it is missing. I think it makes no sense. I just need to mention that again. But I mean, this portal is kind of cool. I haven't looked at it myself, but I mean, I'm assuming it's going to take you into the respective sort of types of integrations depending on the partner, what services that they offer.
Absolutely. So HP, you'll connect the HP service to your tenant, and for the Microsoft Surface Management Portal, it's already part of the portal. But I do not have a Surface, so Microsoft, please send me one. I'll show and demo happily.
Yes, would you like to be an influencer, Matthias?
No, I don't do that. I don't do that.
Maybe we should become one. I don't know. Maybe not. Nobody does that stuff anyway.
No.
Cool. No, that's a neat feature to, at least, combine any sort of partner services and make it available and easier to understand what's possible to integrate and not. Especially HP Connect, which I think is a really, really great tool in terms of controlling your HP devices better with Intune. So definitely. Last but not least, though, we have some important notices.
Yeah, and Nikolai, this is the good stuff, right? The things that is not documented anywhere. Oh, yes. So once upon a time, and I'm going to remove
in a land far, far away.
Far, far away. I'm going
galaxy,
to remove.
I should say, for all the Star Wars fans.
Yes. I'm one of these, users that waits until this preview is going to change in my tenant. So I'm forced to do it.
Same here.
Microsoft really hates me, but that's how it is. So usually when I work with devices, I tend to go to devices, and then the type of OS device I want to play around with, and that is to have the lower possibility to click into policies and stuff.
Already filtered for you, so you don't need to scroll, and it's way better. I totally
agree. This is just a nice way of working, and if you typically in big environments, you're not managing the iOS devices either way, right? So you have the Windows devices, another one has iOS devices, but the case is I'm clicking on configuration profiles here, and lots of companies I work with, we have this operational guide where we kind of, how do I create or change policy within the environment that is deployed to every device. And normally you would go in here and you would be able to right-click the policy if it was a settings catalog. And then you would be able to duplicate the policy. This is no longer a method you can use. Now you have to go to the 3 buttons and then duplicate the policy. So you have to be aware of this. This was a This was like this if you clicked devices and then went directly to configuration profiles. It has been working this way for a very, very long time, but this is a new thing if you go to devices and Windows and configuration profiles. So just be aware of it. And I think it was introduced when we had this filter on platform Windows Phone 8.1. Thank you for that. I do not have that. Windows 8.1 and later.
It's showing that as the first option.
What is this filter for?
I don't know. Phone what? What I liked with this is that it's actually streamlining the experience within the console even further, right? Because I mean, maybe it's just me, but I voiced a lot of feedback saying that it's very, inconsistent. In this blade, you can right click, in the other one, you cannot. In this blade, you can sort on all the columns. In the other one, you cannot, only the name or something like that. And slowly, fixing these small sort of inconsistencies within the portal, I think it makes sense, and just make a decision aligned somewhere. Maybe it's the 3 ellipsis dots that needs to be the way forward. Well, then you go about that, and then you do that across everything, right? So hopefully that's on the path. That's the path we're on for these type of things.
Yeah,
I think it's cool.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That was 2304, right? Unless we had any other important notices.
No, I don't think so. And given that there's been a lot of events, MVP Summit and MMS and stuff like that, I think, we haven't seen the same kind of cadence of development in this service release, but let's see what we have in 2305.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a big one, hopefully. Hopefully bigger than this, but we will see in the future, in the next video, of course. So thank you, Mattias, and have a good day.
You too, Nikolai. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.